Hello, welcome to Fiber Trek. My name is Sarah. This is episode 61-ish, I think. I am looking forward to talking to you today about some works in progress, some finished items. I have a special guest, and I'm super excited about that. I have a lot of acquisitions and discoveries. I have a giveaway to announce. I have some winners to announce. I will briefly update you on the Shackleton Along, and I will probably then say a fond farewell. So I am joined, as usual, by my dogs. I have Coey and Bella, and I also have the special guest. He just finished recording his segment, Ranger Knits. He's sitting on the couch knitting, so if you hear any ambient noise, that's what's happening in the background. So I'm going to get started right away with finished objects. So I finished the Biscotti sweater by Kiyomi Bergen. That's a little bit too red. That's a little bit more of the color. It's more of a raspberry. This is from the Winter 2016 Knit Scene magazine. I knit this on, sorry, I thought I heard my mother pulling up. I knit this on US 11s and the whole thing. And I did make some modifications. And I had talked a little bit about that in my last podcast, but I'll give you the full rundown on what I ended up doing. I'm just going to grab my notes here because every once in a while it's helpful to have them around. So the US 11, which is an 8mm, this is a Romney Singles from Maine Yarn and Fiber Supply that was spun by the Rustic Fiber Mill. So you'll remember that I think I was contemplating, I did finish this, then I ripped it out because I didn't like where it sat. I ripped it out and I started that vertical stripe pattern at the end of the narrowest point of my hip. Fits much better. And it did block out a little bit, but I am glad that I decided to not hope for the blocking best and went ahead and ripped it out. I don't know what happened here, but I knit one sleeve and it zoomed right along, and then I was done. And I went and did the next sleeve and I'm decreasing, and I'm noticing that it's getting harder and harder to work with the magic loop that I was doing, or whatever. I don't know if that's a magic loop or not, but I was using a long cable needle and knitting in the round on it. And I noticed that I didn't have that many stitches, and I was like, well, that's odd because my other sleeve was wide. So I went back and I counted my ribs, and I had 42 stitches on my finished sleeve, and I had like 20 on the sleeve, and I was like, huh. And so when I went and read the fabric, I realized that I decreased 3 times, and then I just decided to stop decreasing for some reason. I don't know why. So I ripped out the sleeve that I had been working on back to the 3rd decrease, and I just kept it at 42 stitches the whole way. I found it to be a little bit more comfortable. It goes over like cuffed pieces better. So yeah, so then I just gently blocked that, the body, but I did want to relax this corrugated ribbing at the top, so I pinned that piece. And it's been out and about already. I also finished my nephew's Storytime Scholar cardigan. This was by Lisa Chemry. And if you remember, he was having some angst about what color, and we had opted for gray, and I had said that I would take him yarn shopping. So we went yarn shopping, and the minute I opened the door and released this hound into the yarn store, I was like, this is a mistake. I was like, retreat, retreat. And he was like bread to butter, or butter to bread in the yarn store, and he picked out so many expensive yarns and yarns that I would never knit with. And I took him over to Cascade Eco, and he was like, I don't like it. I was like, oh, rats. And he had picked out, his initial pick was this 2-ply white and dark brown strand, kind of a rag look. And the attendant at the store came over, Miss Heidi, and this was the mother of Pearl Yarn Shop, came over, and she was like really talking it up, and I was like, we don't want that. She's like, oh, it's kind of itchy. And she's like, put it next to your cheek. And he put it next to his cheek, and he's like, 1 inch. And I was like, yeah, we need to go for 0 itch. Like somehow this is like a 5-point itch scale. So we wandered around the store. He completely outright rejected the yarn that I wanted to work with, that would be easy maintenance, knit right up. And he wandered over towards Peace Fleece, and I was like, okay, this is fine, right? Peace Fleece. I probably can make those numbers work. And he picked out this really cool, like, tweedy brown. And I was like, well, let's keep looking. I was really trying to find a maniacal way. I don't think that's right, but I was trying to find a, subtle way of nudging him back towards the gray. And so we continued to walk around, and I was like, Auntie Sarah, we need a very special kind of yarn for your sweater, and why don't you look at this? And immediately he saw this gray yarn, and he walked over to it and he picked it up, and he's like, I want this. And it was like baby alpaca from Juniper Moon. It was like $20 a skein. There was like 90 yards. I was going to need like, 4 of them. And I was like, well, that's not that soft. Let's go try this yarn. And I walked back over to Cascade Eco. Oh, I know what I said. I said, that one's got those little hairs like we talked about that make you itch. And he was like, but I will pick them off. And I was like, well, let's try this one. So I got him back to Cascade Eco and had him put it by his face. And he was like, 0 itch, Auntie Sarah. And I was like, let's go pick out buttons. So we picked up the Cascade Eco and we went over and picked out buttons. And he actually picked out some really cool buttons, and he got these moose and fish and fox. He had to get 2 sets of each of those. and then we paid for it and ran out of there. But he loved looking at everything, all the color, all the texture. He was definitely opinionated, and I have to admire that, because that's something that obviously we share. It's just hard to collaborate when you're both very opinionated. So I got that knit up, and I took it over to him, and he was like, I don't want it. And I was like, fine, I'll give it to your sister. And then it was immediate, I do want it, Auntie Sarah. So he tried it on, and it fit, and he loves it. I love you, Auntie Sarah. I love my sweater. When we had bought the yarn and came home, I let him help me put it into a ball, and we used the Swift and the skein and the skein winder? No, we used the Swift and the ball winder. And he, if you saw my Instagram post, he had said, Auntie Sarah, I will do this and you will knit my sweater. And he then said, I want my own ball of yarn to take home. So we finished getting all the cakes ready, and then I rolled a little ball of yarn for him to take home and put in his pocket. And I went over like a week later, and he was like, I still have my ball of yarn. So anyway, it was super gratifying. I want to stop using super as an adjective. It was gratifying to have such a strong reaction from, well, such a little person, but, he's getting to that age where now he can express his gratitude and talk about how things are special, and he did. So that kid, he can have whatever he wants. I will knit for him, whatever. I also make him quite a few pairs of pajamas, and he loves those. So he can request those all day long, and I will continue to make them for him. Excuse me. But speaking of that, let's just jump right into works in progress, because that story leads to this story, which is I also have a niece, and she is somewhere 18 months plus, I think. And and I've knit a couple sweaters for her, and I made her a couple dresses, but of course, she's not quite as verbal as Cameron is. And so I decided with the Cascade Eco that he didn't want, that darker gray, that I would knit Kate Davies Owlette for her. So I cast that on, and it is just like her adult version, which is a yoked sweater, and it has a cable across the yoke or around the whole yoke that looks like an owl. So I can give you a visual of that. And it's kind of the same gauge. I'm knitting it on US 11s, 8mm, and I'm knitting it out of Cascade Eco in kind of a dark gray color. So it should knit up pretty quickly. So here it is. So that is on the needles and flying along, and it's gray yarn, so I don't think you need to see knit 2 purl 2 ribbing. I'm also working on the Shine Mittens by Pia Kamabornia, and I'm doing this as part of the Blacker podcast knit along, pod lounge knit along, which ends in March. I have it written down here somewhere. I'm gonna throw this over here so it doesn't get dog hair on it. Let me give you the details of that in case you're interested in following along what's happening. So I cannot go to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year again. Heartbreaking, but I will get there. And so they're doing a knit along, and you can win prizes for both people who do go and people who don't. But you just need to knit with their yarn. So I'm knitting with Cornish Tin 2, and this is co-sponsored by Louise of Knit British and Blacker. And I am knitting the Shine Mitts by Pia Kamabornia, and I am going to enter those into her knit along and the Blacker knit along. So the Shine Mittens is January and February, and the Blacker, I believe, ends in March, the beginning of March, before the festival. So these have a Latvian braid detail, and obviously they are color work. The colors are Levant Gray and Kitty Wheel Orange. Levant Gray and Wheel Kitty Orange. And the finished objects are going to kind of look like this. There's something really gratifying about working on double points for me. I don't do it very often because I don't knit a lot of accessories. I love to knit sweaters, so, but just to give you a little insight into what that's going to look like. And you can see lots of examples on the Kamabornia podcast, which again, I recommended before, I'd recommend again. And she also has some other patterns that are similar and kind of the feel. And she is actually wearing one right here in her picture, which is this cowl. Something light. I can't remember the name. So that's on the go. I'm knitting that on a US 2, and I can't tell you what that is in millimeters. So that's going, and I'm using a skein of each color. I also have on the go the Ramble Shawl by Andrea Mowry. It's quite a few things on the go right now for me. But I usually have a shawl and a sweater on the go, so. And this is knit with Upton Yarns and Fern's Watch colorway, which is the kind of dusky purple, and the Silver Birch, which is the gray. So I'm just about to finish that kind of asymmetrical garter stripe shape, and then I'll be picking up and continuing with a brioche chevron pattern that I think kind of like looks like a stole, if you will. I might be able to bring it up quickly without feeling, like there's too much silence on the other end of the line. So, yeah, here it is. And I haven't knit brioche in a while. I had knit a brioche cowl, and I had a really good time with that. It is featured on one of my earlier podcasts, but we'll see how that goes. I also cast on, if I remember, I think I was talking about doing the Gameldags. Is it Gameldags by Helen Magnusson, which is a pullover, could be a pullover or a cardigan, Icelandic yoke. And I had talked about doing it in my own Icelandic singles that I had done at a Rustic Fiber Mill. And I was knitting it on a US 8, and it really wasn't working out for me. I'm knitting the shawl on a US 7, by the way, which is, I believe, I usually am one needle size up from the recommended pattern. So I was knitting that on a US 8, and the fabric was super, oh, there it is again. That fabric was dense, and I just wasn't digging it. And so I decided I would change, and I had been eyeing this pattern for a long time. And this is Grizzly by Elizabeth Smith. and it's a vest with that big cowl neck. I don't think she shows you the back necessarily. Nope. But it's longer in the back, so you're knitting up the front, then you knit down the back, and then you pick up for that big cowl neck collar. So I have the gray Icelandic that I'm doing that light component in, and then I have a dark brown from one of my sheep that I no longer have. She passed away, Little Pharaoh, that I'm gonna do the back in. I also have one skein of indigo dyed Icelandic yarn that Sarah Lake did for me of Upton Yarns when she was visiting. So I may actually do the collar in that deep indigo blue and then the brown in the back, but we'll see what I'm able to come up with. So anyway, that's Grizzly. I'm knitting that on the US 13, and I'm not sure if I'm getting gauge, but I've just gone ahead and gone up. I'm using the needle size recommended, but I'm knitting a size up knowing that I'm going to have some tension that's going to pull it down. So it is US 13, 9mm. So anyway, kind of a cool construction, and I think that'll be a real versatile piece to, you know, wear over dresses or what have you, and even with maybe with a belt, because like I said, it is a little bit longer in the back, and you probably can knit the front, so it kind of might have like a tabard kind of look. So anyway, Grizzly by Elizabeth Smith, and let me show you how that gauge is kind of looking. I am really thrilled with the way that Icelandic feels at this gauge. You know, to go from something so dense to something so light, I think it really shows off all the features of Icelandic yarn. So here it is, and it's just knit and garter stitch really, and it has a stockinette feature on the side. So I like it. It's really gratifying, and it's going to knit up fast. I think that's it for works in. Oh, let me talk about Shackleton. The Shackleton chatter has kind of died off, and that's totally fine. I mean, I think we're all kind of on the ice that this is a very long knit-along and epic journey of whatever you want it to be. I am still continuing on mine. The goal wasn't necessarily to finish on a certain timeline, but it was to attempt, and you know, it was a testament of endurance, and hence the name of Shackleton's Antarctic ship that he did his exploration with. So I'm knitting Kate Davies Frost at Midnight, and this is out of the yarn that I designed from some Flat Island fleeces that are off the coast of Maine. I've talked extensively about this particular mill, Nash Island. So I designed this yarn, and we are going to release it. So that is forthcoming, and I will be sure to put markers out there so people know that that's happening, and you know where to buy it, etc. So anyway, Kate Davies Frost at Midnight is from her Yokes book, and it is knit from the bottom up, and it has a beaded yoke of trees, and I couldn't really find the yarn that I wanted to knit it with, so my friend Janny of Starcroft suggested that I just design it myself, and so I have. So that kind of rides around with me in my mom's car when we commute to work, and if I have a chance, I can knit while she drives. So that's the Shackleton base from Starcroft and Fibertrek. Right, so let's go talk about acquisitions and discoveries. Let's see if I... Yeah, acquisitions and discoveries. So let's jump right into acquisitions and discoveries. I have a couple knitting blogs, podcasts that I wanted to recommend. I know that I'd recommended Knitting the Stash before. She has an online blog, but she also has now started recording, and so that content is out there, and I find it really enriching, and I like the exploration that she does with her spinning and her knitting projects. So Knitting the Stash, she's on YouTube, and that's Melissa. And also Knitography. I've really been enjoying this vlog out of Norway with Patricia, and you may have noticed I did a collaborative giveaway with her on Instagram. She's P4Chen, on Instagram, and she was featuring some gorgeous Trondo. I don't think I can really say it quite the way she can. I'm butchering that description right now. So anyway, it's a rare conservation breed, and she has had some yarn spun from this breed, and she talks about Selbu knitting and the mittens, and so head on over to Knitography and she will clear up all of the pronunciations and all of the my inability to articulate anything about what's going on in Norway with conservation breeds and cultural knitting. How about that? Let's see, what else? So I know this kind of plays into two things. I know that I had talked about doing the shine mittens for Claire of New Hampshire Knits. She does a color work knit along, and I believe it's going to be February 15th. I think it's the start date, but you're going to want to check in with her podcast. And I was going to do the shine mitts, but I decided against that because I really wanted to do the shine mittens. And I had found this mitten pattern, and I felt like it was a real motivating project for me, and it was color work. And so I decided to, for that particular knit along, I was going to do Bristol Ivy's Peace, Resistance is Not Futile, her Peace de Resistance mittens. So I'm going to do these for that color work. I haven't decided what yarn I'm going to use, but I did acquire the pattern. And yeah, so that'll be up and coming. I also, let's see, is that it for kind of, oh yeah. I also, I picked up a copy of Lane magazine. I think they're out of Finland. And Claire of New Hampshire Knits generously donated a copy for the podcast to do a giveaway. So I'll talk about that now. That giveaway will just be commenting in the episode thread, and go ahead and provide some feedback or say hello, or I don't know, but I'll be doing the drawing from that particular thread. So it's one way to kind of pull together just make it easy for me to find that stuff. So, and do a drawing. So Lane magazine, Nordic Knit Life. It's got some beautiful features, most notably the photography. And, it has that kind of muted look. This is one of the patterns that was really appealing to me, and I think I would like to knit. This is Ancasta. She says here, and you can take me anywhere you want as long as there is soil under my feet, wind playing with my hair, and birds singing in the sky. Miejo's Kipi gorgeous Ancasta dress is named after a Celtic goddess. So the pattern is, it's a dress, and it's got some cable work on it. And here's a nice, beautiful picture. It looks like it's been knit with Isgar's Jensen yarn. The sweater, there's a sweater version on the dress. The sweater uses the Baremu Dovestone DK. So lots of patterns, and also some nice interviews with some designers. We've got Joji Locatelli, a conversation there. And I believe she's also contributed a pattern on the origin of wool. Rintala Farm, situated in western Finland, specializes in breeding traditional domestic sheep. Finn sheep and the Kainu Grey. Their wool will be spun into yarn that rivals the more commonly known merino. So that certainly appealed to my sensibility and my interest in wool and flocks and traditional breeds, heritage breeds, etc. So that was a really nice addition for me, not just getting the knitting patterns, but also getting a little bit more information about the medium that we get to use. So we have patterns in here by Vera Valimaki. They have a favorite things section. They have a travel section. They have some commentaries. So it's a nice mix of really good articles and patterns. So there's a lot of content here to take a look at. And here's another piece. This is Maylene that I really liked. And I could kind of see maybe doing that out of a piece fleece. So So there's recipes, there's a drink recipe in here, crostini, chocolate cake with dried flowers and flake sea salt. So it's a nice mix of kind of a little bit different genres of all sorts of interacting with food, interacting with texture, etc. So she travels to Lisbon in this particular issue. And there's also some other, like I said, you have the food piece, you've got the knitting piece, you've got the educational and informational piece, and then there's also some other little craft pieces. So this is Lane Magazine. This is their first issue. This is Autumn Winter 2016, and I do have an issue to give away. So go ahead and make a comment in the episode thread, and hopefully I'll get to the post office, because we all know how good I am at that. All right, nitty gritty time. I picked up on Instagram that Midwinter Yarns in the UK was having a 20% off sale. And I had been following Midwinter for a while, probably 2 years now, and have been coveting a number of their yarns. They import Scandinavian yarns. It's a really great way to kind of see what's available and get it ordered. I kind of fell down really hard on the website, but I figured I was paying for the shipping and that I wanted to get everything I could. So I had such a great day looking at yarns, planning projects, figuring out what would work where. That's one of my favorite things to do. If you have need, perchance, if you've got some yarn you picked up at a festival, or that's kind of spun micro mill style and you're not really sure what to do with it or what it would work for, let me know, because I love to pick out projects and match projects to kind of place-based yarns or travel-y kind of yarns, so full stash kind of yarns. So I picked up this. This is Allcentrum. This is a 3-ply, 100% Swedish wool. And I knew immediately when I saw Kate Davies, the OA, is that how you say it? I'm sure Louise will help me. Of Knit British, she helped me with how to say the Shetland, the book. And it's when you say wool, it's that wool part, although I can't say it without the L at the end. So I'm having a hard time with kind of my vowel quadrangle. I'm sure Emily will help me with that one too. Emily, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, sorry, I'm kind of having a little bit of a Mach speed train wreck in my head. Anyway, I'm having a hard time creating that sound with my speech helpers, put it that way. So Allcentrum for Kate Davies OA, which is knit in a herbucle. It's knit in a sport. The Allcentrum is kind of a heavier DK, but I knew that I wanted that particular garment to be an outerwear garment, and I wanted it to have a bit of ruggedness about it. So this is a 3-ply, and I'm not too worried about gauge. I think I can work with the numbers, and if it's a little bit bigger, that's okay, because it's going to be going over other layers. There was talk of doing it in some other colors, and I had originally saw this beautiful navy and this like light gray, and I was toying with the idea of this gorgeous like grassy green or turquoise as a pop of color. But in the end, don't worry. In the end, I got the light gray and the charcoal. The charcoal is going to be the color work piece. This will be the main color, kind of the background, and then the pop will be this very traditional cherry red. So it's a very traditional set of colors, and I'm happy about that. I know I love that grassy green, so I know someday I will own that beautiful green. But for this particular project, I just kind of went with my typical choice, my typical style. I also picked up this Finnish wool, and I think this is 90 meters. And I thought it was going to be on the heavier side, and I'll just need to play around with what I get for gauge. But this is out of Finland, and yeah, just a really nice brown. And then, more craziness. I picked up some Gotland. This is irresistible. This breed is particularly irresistible to me. Well, again, just the long wools. And I do love the history that goes along. But this is, I got enough to do the main body in this kind of pearly gray. And then there were so many beautiful contrast colors, and I knew I wanted to do a yoke. So I picked up, and you'll be all really proud of me here, because there's lots of diversity, and I think probably some colors you've never ever seen before on, sorry, was that really annoying with the light? On the podcast. So I picked up these colors to do the yoke. And I predicated this strictly on preference. So when I looked at that, I didn't have a color work theme in mind. I just picked them because I thought they were beautiful, and I figured that I could bring them together. And I think they will. I think there's some lights and darks, and there's some pops in there, and that will, you know, of course, marry nicely with the gray. So that's Gotland. This is slated as a DK. I also picked up this Perlinka, and I'd seen this on some patterns that Carrie Westerman had designed, and had been really I was really attracted to it. So I picked up these two colors, and I was thinking of doing a color work shawl out of these, or, you know, a pair of mitts, or maybe the piece de resistance mitts. So anyway, this is a fingering weight per se. It is 100 grams, and it's 400 meters. So I think that's all the yarn. Oh no, it's not. I know, believe it or not. I also got in the mail, I had bought this in October, and Janny was dyeing it up for me. But I have aspirations. Uh-oh, bat dogs. This is her fog base. It's lamb's wool and 10% Angora. And this is the Osier colorway. And I'm going to knit, and I'm thinking about casting this on too. I'm kind of a little crazy with the cast on, but I don't know what that's about, but I'm just going to ride the wave. This is going to be a Pompano, or Pompano by Kirsten Kapoor. And that's not helpful, is it? And I'm going to knit it a little bit longer and drop it down to a tunic. And I just think that will be fun as in kind of an overdress on maybe like a knit or something. So yeah. So I'm knitting the Nash Island Fog into that. So that is going to be going onto the needles, I think. What else for acquisitions and discoveries? Let me check my notes. So the only other thing I wanted to mention in this segment is I did receive a pattern as a gift, which is the Big Star Shawl by Julia Billings, who you may know as Woolen Flower. I was gifted this by Haley Lee on Ravelry with a very lovely and very thoughtful note, and I wanted to just say that I very much appreciated you reaching out and providing that bit of sentiment. And I look forward to knitting that shawl. It's a kind of it's a very large triangular shawl with lots of fringe, but it incorporates a number of Faroese techniques. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe even getting some of my own Icelandic spun into singles to try to create a little bit more authenticity around the traditional elements of that. Let's see. I think we're moving along here. I am doing a giveaway. I didn't have very many entries, so what I've decided to do in the champion giveaway is I'm going to, I've gone ahead and drawn for the Ajax mitts, which were generously donated, 2 copies from Aspen Snapdragon. They're half mitts, and they have a really nice, gorgeous cable that run down the center. A really great way to use up or test out some kind of, you know, soulful yarns that maybe you want to invest in something bigger. But those are going to Lori 521 and Steph G. Phillips. And then I went ahead and I'm going to give away the letterpress by Sarah Pomegranate, or Sarah Bauer. And also I'm going to give away Emily Estrada's new mitten pattern, which I can give you the name of that right now. Reflecting Light mitts. And I think I can show you what those look like. Have you seen them? They're on her podcast. They're knit in a Brooklyn tweed yarn, and they're really fun. I like them. They're very basic in that they have got this colorwork band just on the cuff, and then it's like free sailing up the mitten with a little bit of texture thrown in. So I really liked that. But let me show you. They come in 3 different sizes, and they have beautiful moon motifs. So I'm going to be giving that pattern away and the letterpress, and that will be going to Granny Sheep, M and Judy Bug, both getting copies of letterpress. And Prairie Firebird will also be getting a copy of letterpress. And Doreen Mac-L will be getting a copy of the Reflecting Light mitts for their contributions to the Champion thread. So thanks so much for taking some time out to share with us what's important to you. Right, so we had Prairie Firebird talking about America's tallgrass prairie and the birds in those ecosystems. Local access, Lori 521 talking about local access to natural areas. Dexter Cattle and Heritage Breed work from M and Judy Bug. Granny Sheep talking about agricultural pollution and how to minimize that. Steph G. Phillips talking about the rusty patched bee, which was just placed on the endangered species list, and the support of the of fiber sheds around the U.S. So there was a real diverse amount of championing going on there. So I've just gone ahead, and everybody will get a prize. So thank you so much, like I said, for investing some time into just throwing some of these issues out there for consideration and the work that you're doing for them. Well, let's see. I told you about the Lane giveaway. We did the giveaway for the patterns. We have a special segment coming up, Ranger Knits. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in right here, and then I'll see you on the other side to say farewell. So I told you we would have a special guest, and I was able to get Paddle to the Sea to join me on the show. So we're thinking that this would be a fun segment called Ranger Knits, because Rob is a ranger. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what you do, in case people don't know who you are? He's my husband, by the way, just in case you don't know.
So I'm a park ranger in Baxter State Park up in sort of north central Maine. And I've been a park ranger for 16 years. So that's pretty much it. So work in the woods.
Yeah, you work in the woods, in the backcountry, and that type of thing. So did you knit before
I met you?
I met me?
No.
But you've always done handwork.
Right.
Yes. What other types of handwork do you do?
Leather work, working with leather. Sewing leather, making pouches and mittens, and leather chopper mitts and things like that. So.
You tie flies.
I do.
You made some bamboo fly rods.
Not bamboo, just fiberglass.
I mean fiberglass.
Yeah. Boron. So.
You like to do lots of things with epoxy.
You can do a lot of things with the epoxy.
Epoxy was in our wedding vows. Epoxy is very important in our house. So, and if people want to follow your adventures in the park in northern Maine, you can follow Rob at Paddle to the Sea on Instagram.
Yep.
So I just wanted to invite Rob onto the show because he has been doing quite a bit of knitting, and I just thought it would be an opportunity to have him share what he's been working on. So what have you been working on?
Well, it's slow in coming, but I'm working on my very first sweater, and it's getting there. So there we go. So this is a Jared Flood.
Yeah, it's Jared Flood. Cobblestone.
And I have a sweater that Sarah had made me of this before, and
I think you might want to hold it up a little bit longer.
Okay.
Just so you can get used to just so people can see it's got a garter stitch yoke here, and then everything else is stockinette. And what did you have to work?
Short rows.
For the first time.
First time ever.
Short rows.
Like 4 times. Had to take them out, go again, take them out. And yeah.
Yeah.
So now I appreciate all you knitters that are out there that do sweaters. Socks are so much easier.
And you're wearing some of your hand knit socks.
I am. My very first pair of socks I knit, these Lincoln Jacob.
Yep.
That we got at Maryland Sheep and Wool a couple years ago.
Yeah. And those were featured on Knitters of the World with Fruity Knitting.
Yeah.
Do you
What? Ross Farm?
They're Ross Farm,
Yep.
Jacob
Lincoln.
Yeah. So this is Cobblestone by Jared Flood, and what yarn are you using for it?
This is Jenny's Starcroft Light.
Yep, Starcroft Nash Island Light.
Nash Island Light.
Yep. And how come you're using green?
So, first time knitting a sweater, ran out of yarn.
You
So,
lost yarn chicken.
Yeah, big time by like 6 or 7 inches. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're not sure how it's going to come out yet. But,
I think it's going to look great. I like
Yeah.
that color.
yeah.
And you have it in, what bag are you keeping it in?
Well, my Matta Roots bag, except it's gotten too big.
Yeah.
For the bag,
And this is
so-
the wool version. Rob and I each got these for Christmas
Mhm.
from my mom.
Yep.
And so, cool. What are you going to knit next, do you think, after your sweater?
I'm going to tie flies and go trout fishing.
No, what are you going to knit next? Like, do you want to knit a colorwork yoke sweater? Do you want to expand your skill sets?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Because I was thinking that
Probably another toque.
he could knit a Radari.
Probably
Nice
another toque.
colorwork yoke. Yeah, do you want to talk about your toque? You've talked about
Yeah.
it once before
So,
on Knitters of the World.
so this is a pattern that we developed. So
Yeah.
I've got probably 2 decades of historical reenactments. So I've always enjoyed the Voyager
What does
French
that
toque.
actually mean, though? Historical reenactments.
I used to do living history in different
There you
time periods. So one of the periods was the French and Indian War and Voyager time period. So these toques are what the Voyagers wore quite often. And so this was knit out of Upton
5-ply.
5-ply Gansey.
Yep.
Yep. So we're working on it. So I'm gonna probably knit another one of these, and then we're gonna have the pattern.
Yep, we're
Maybe.
going to work on this for release. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit, because this is really interesting, I don't know, I think you told me this. You want to talk about why there's so much space here?
So one of the stories I've heard, whether it's truthful or not, but historical clothing typically doesn't have a lot of pockets in it. So the Voyagers would have a sash, and sometimes they could roll things up in the sash and then tie that around their waist. But a lot of times in their toque, this created an actual pocket. So a lot of your Voyageurs didn't necessarily know how to swim, so they wanted to keep things dry if they got wet when they were moving in their canoes and everything, so they could put their tobacco and their pipe actually up in their toque, and then whenever they wanted to stop, it was right there with them. And if they were wading through water, dragging the canoes or anything, their pipe and tobacco wouldn't get wet.
They were portaging.
Right.
So that means to carry your canoe overland between rivers or lakes when you can't actually paddle through. So cool. Yeah. So we're hoping that this will be released if you have any interest. It definitely is warm, and it was knit. The 5-ply Gansey is a true 5-ply, so it has a real density to it.
It's a nice weight.
Yeah, and it's certainly warm enough. So anything else on the go for you?
No, that's it for
That's it for Ranger Knits.
yarn stuff, yeah. So I'll finish my fly rod that I've been working on since
Oh,
Christmas.
I think we're gonna say goodbye on Ranger Knits, and we'll go back. I think it goes to the end. Our dog is getting up, which is usually a sure sign that we might be able to get him outside.
Yeah.
So our old dog Coey. So you're gonna see me. I'm gonna say farewell, and we'll hopefully have Ranger Knits again.
See ya.
Bye. Right, so that's it for this edition of Fiber Trek. Thank you so much for tuning in and for investing in the podcast. I know I hopefully said that in the beginning. Did I say that in the beginning? Oh. But thank you. Thank you for reaching out, connecting, investing in the work here. I really appreciate it. I don't always get to respond quite the way I would like to, but I read everything that comes my way. So I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea and get this edited and uploaded and spend some time with the Ranger. But until next time, I hope that wherever your fiber tricks may take you, that you return home safe and with lots of soulful stash. I'll see you next time. Bye.